of redemption. You were chosen.
Hey everyone, and welcome to our live preview of Elden Ring Nightreign. This game is made by From Software, but it's very different from what you're used to with From Software's games. It is set in the Elden Ring universe, and it does have the same control scheme and the same basic ideas, but that's kind of where things end. Alongside me to talk about this is someone who I would consider a From Software expert, someone who's played a ton of Souls-likes and generally enjoys them, and that is Matt Kyle. What's up, Matt?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say expert.
I think you are.
I'm pretty good, but I ain't good like those people you see online making everything.
Naked runs and all that kind of stuff.
I don't do that.
Yep.
I'm the person that Steph Sterling's talking about this week about the people who play the game wrong because they use all the advantages they can find. I don't have any interest in making it an extra challenge for myself. I'm going to use that mimic tier.
Well, this game structurally is completely different from any other From Software game, and that includes like all their other, not just Dark Souls and Demon Souls and Elden Ring, pretty much all From Software's games. The best way I could describe it is a cross between a Souls-like, Monster Hunter, and Fortnite.
I'm out.
Don't say that, because I think you will like this game. I think a lot of people are going to like this game, and the first thing I am going to say right off the top here is that this is the first From Software game I have liked since like their early games on like PS1 and like PC. I, Shane Satterfield, have enjoyed Elden Ring Nightreign. If you follow me at all, you know I do not like Souls-likes. I do not typically like From Software's games. I like this one. But you're right, Matt. That could be a huge red flag to people who actually really love these games. But that is the best way to describe it. Monster Hunter crossed with a Battle Royale, crossed with basically the same control scheme and Souls-like combat. Now, basically how it works is there are 3 players in each match, and in this early beta period, there were 4 different classes that you could choose from. There will be 8 in the final game. And basically, there's like a little hub room that you sit in, and it is kind of cool. There's like places there you can try out your weapons if you want to experiment with them before you go out in the field. But you choose your class there, and then you go to a menu, and you choose the monster that you want to hunt. And that's where it feels the most like Monster Hunter. Now, in the beta, for the days that I played, there was just one monster there. So I couldn't choose from a list, but there was one there, and I chose it. And then you go, and you head out for the match. Matchmaking, very quick, very snappy. Literally like that. And that's what a lot of this was for them to test their networks and see how their networks were working. Mission accomplished. So once you match up with 3 people, it fires it off, the match starts, and you're flying on a bird. You and the 2 other players, you're flying from somewhere, I don't know, onto this big open world like battlefield. And when you initially fly in, it's not like Fortnite where you can choose where you want to get off. So you can be like, oh, I want to go to the other side of the map and start at this hut or whatever. The game forces you to land like on this same area together. Now later on that changes, but to start the game, that's how it happens. So you land and you are just in Elden Ring land, where there is this big open area and just enemies, bosses, mini bosses scattered all over the place. Now, it is a little bit like a roguelike. When you start, you have basically nothing. You're completely weak. So the first thing you want to do is you want to find a group of weak enemies to kill so that you can level up. So literally, you probably have to kill 4 enemies before you can level up the first time. And the leveling up happens at the Sites of Grace, just like in Elden Ring. You go there, the leveling up is very simple. You basically just smash the X button until it levels up. You don't granularly manage individual stats. You just level up. You go up to level 2 or level 3. Sometimes you have enough XP that you level up, or runes, that you level up like 5 times in one visit to a Site of Grace. But you do not like control each individual stat. It does all that automatically. So once you get to level 2, then you're ready to go. That's when you and your crew start going out and you start hunting. And having 2 other players in a From Software game environment changes everything for somebody like me, who hasn't been a fan of From Software's games in the past. Now look, these enemies, if they hit you, they still take 30 of your health, half of your health, or whatever, but there's always someone else to distract them. And that's the important part.
Well, that's why co-op is important in the other games.
Yep. They never focus on you long enough, usually, to just wipe you out with a couple attacks. By that time, one of your teammates will have jumped in, done something, and it turns their attention to them, just enough for you to get away and use one of your flasks. When you start, you have 4 flasks. There are churches located throughout the levels. If you visit a church and clear it out, you'll get an extra flask that you can use. And then every time you go to a site of grace, you get your flask replenished. So I also never found myself in this game being like, crap, I have no flasks. Like, if you're smart and you play as a team and you go to the churches in the early stages of the game and build up your flasks, you can survive for a pretty long time. And again, sites of grace are everywhere. Like once every 200 yards or something like that. So it's always easy to find one and level up or refill your flasks or whatever. And that's sort of the flow of the game. As you go, you kill enemies, you kill mini bosses, and there's all these intricate things that you can do to make that happen. You find keys that unlock doors, and behind the door there's mini bosses or whatever. I came across gigantic bosses just walking across the environment. The other thing I would say, too, is don't go your own way. You're going to die. Because this game also, because they account for the fact that you have 3 players, there's way more enemies. They're everywhere. The rank and file guys are really everywhere. And as somebody who played Elden Ring for, 20 hours or something like that, before I gave up, I never got to see all the coolest stuff in Elden Ring. The coolest bosses, mini bosses, even some of the rank and file enemies later in the game are really freaking cool. I never got to see them. I got to see them all playing this map because they're all just there. And you can mostly pick and choose your battles. Every once in a while, an enemy will kind of follow you around and track you down and keep running after you. But for the most part, if you're in a battle and you're like, oh, I'm getting my butt kicked, and you run away, they don't follow you and try to keep killing you. You can kind of look at the map, see where the enemies are, and look at your level and be like, hey, I need to bump up a level or whatever, and you can manage it that way. So you're never kind of overwhelmed. Every once in a while, you do get attacked off of camera. I think that's kind of part and parcel for a From Software game, though. But again, having the other 2 players there makes a big difference for distraction, but also they can revive you. So to revive other players in this, you attack them with your weapon. So they're laying there downed, and you hack them a couple times with your weapon, and they'll get up, which is a little weird. Once you're down...
You would too if somebody was hitting you with a sword.
Once you're down in this, you have very little time, though, to be revived before you die. But here's the thing. Dying in this game doesn't matter that much. If you do die, you respawn 40 yards away. And with very little penalty. You also still have the weapons that you earned. And that's a big part of this game. As you go and as you level up, not only do you find new weapons from drops, from enemies that you kill, there are also merchants where you can buy better weapons. Although I would argue that you should just wait to get drops because they're always better and you don't have to spend your money for them with or your runes like you do at the merchant. So you get new weapons that way, but also you can level up weapons and you can improve the ones that you have. You also find drops that are just buffs and bonuses. So at a certain point, I got this crazy buff where my character had these 3 blue swords that just followed me around. And when I get near an enemy, they just automatically go and attack the enemy. And stuff like that happens pretty much every run. I didn't even know what was going on half the time. I just pick up stuff and all of a sudden I'd be a world slayer. You really feel a difference in every level. Going from level 1 to level 2 is night and day. 2 to 3, 3 to 4. By the time you get to the end, and the way the game is structured is by days. So the first day, you pretty much just spend killing all the rank and file guys to level up. Day 2, that's when you start toppling the mini bosses and some of the bosses that are just there on the environment. And then by the 3rd day, it's nighttime, and you fight the end boss, the guy that you selected from the menu at the beginning. And to be perfectly honest with you, I never even made it to the 3rd day in this. I got way into the 2nd day. I never made it to the 3rd day. I played it for 6 hours. The teams that I was on, we never made it, sadly. Some of the players I played with seemed pretty damn good too, but we just never could do it. But that's sort of how the game is structured. You can run around and do whatever you want, but there's also waypoints that you can just follow. And if you go to each waypoint, it'll take you there, and basically it's saying come here, kill all the enemies here, then we'll give you a new waypoint. And generally, once you complete one of those, they'll drop all the stuff. You get yourself a new weapon. Any class can use any weapon. So there's the typical fighter. There's the half bird, half human guy. I can't remember what they're called. There's a rogue. and then there's a spellcaster. So you can have a magic caster that also can use huge melee weapons, and so you can really kind of create the character that you want. And again, there are 4 other classes that we did not get to try that were not in this beta, unfortunately. I think the bigger change in the classes is in defense. So, like I think he's called like the Wyvern or something like that. He's just a typical warrior guy. He has the usual Dark Souls roll or parry or block. But like some of the smaller like the magic casting classes will do different things. Like she can sidestep. And so when she sidesteps, she can counterattack much more quickly.
If you put a giant melee weapon on your caster, they are probably going to run out of stamina pretty quick. Because they are not efficient at their strength, or their whatever is not up high enough to be able to swing it with. Like, because the higher up you go with the stat that determines, scales with whatever weapon you're using, the more efficient you are with that weapon usually. And so you're just not kind of built for that. But yeah, you can equip anything.
The stamina bar in this is like way different. Like, first of all, the game in general, way faster than Elden Ring. But you run way faster in this. And you can jump way higher. You can climb way faster. Like, the speed of the game in general...
Do you not have the horse?
What'd you say?
Do you not have the horse?
I never had a horse in this. But it doesn't matter, because there are these things called, like, sprint streams or something that you just jump into, and they will just shoot you up into the air over, like, cliff faces and things like that. So they've kind of taken the horse out. You don't need it to jump up those high cliff faces, or these little things that you get into, hit X, and they just shoot you up. But the big difference is the speed of the game. The combat, the running, the jumping, everything is much faster. There's no fall damage. So, like, it's also, don't forget, it's a battle royale game. So as you're playing, the battlefield is constantly shrinking. It's like a ring of, like, blue flame with rain. And so there are times where they'll send you someplace to fight somebody, and you're fighting a mini-boss, and while you're fighting the mini-boss, you can see on the edge that the edge of the battlefield is creeping in. So that gives you that sense, like, we need to finish this guy, and as soon as we can finish him, we need to get out of here. And that's when the new traversal really comes into play. Like, you can really make a lot of headway in a short period of time because of how fast you can run, how high you can jump, all the sort of spring pads that they give you. They also have these stations throughout the world that let you grab onto the bird again. So when you first come into the battlefield with the bird, he drops you off and you can't really do much. When you use these stations out in the open world, the bird comes and you fly, and you control the bird at that point. You can steer the bird, you can lower the bird's altitude so you can land, but again, there's a fall damage, so you can let loose whenever you want to. But you have more control over the bird once you're in-game than you do at the beginning of the game. So the traversal options in this are completely different. I think Elden Ring fans probably will be put off at first at how quick everything is, but you adjust to it pretty fast. But it does play a little bit more like an average kind of hack and slash action adventure than like a From Software grindy, really difficult, challenging action RPG. And of course, the fact you have 2 teammates alongside helps as well while you're playing through the game with the difficulty. I think big time helps with the difficulty. So it's not just the surface either. Like, there are dungeons in the game, and sometimes the waypoint will take you there. And you go down underground and go down into these dungeons and fight all these enemies, and that's typically where you get the best drops, but it's risky. Like, you die. And the way that you die, the way that you end a run in this is when everybody dies. So if there's one person left and the other 2 are dead, like, your goal should be to try to revive the other 2 guys, because if you die, you're done. And just like in every other From Software game, all it takes is one shot from a formidable foe to kill you. So sometimes you think you're cruising along, you're like, oh, we're good, man, we got our strategy rocking or whatever, and just like one mini boss just smashes 2 of you, third guy doesn't realize it, smashes him, game over, just like that. And that, to me, is where it's the most like a From Software game.
So
like,
don't bunch up, is what you're saying.
Right, yeah. Yeah, don't bunch up, but also don't spread out. Because if you go off by yourself, you have no chance. Actually, what am I saying? There are people out there who will be fine.
There are people who are going to do that specifically.
Just are going to do that on purpose, which would really screw your teammates, but whatever. Each class has a passive bonus, an active skill with a short cooldown, and then an ultimate ability with a longer cooldown. And how you use your abilities, and this obviously is different from their games, is you have to hold the triangle button and then use the shoulder buttons to pull off the special abilities. Otherwise, the control scheme is identical to Elden Ring, as far as where all the buttons are and what they do. Using the flask, heavy attack, light attack, all those buttons are the same, so you can jump right in and hit the ground running if you've played a lot of Elden Ring. The drops and the loot, they get ridiculous pretty quickly. One thing that's cool, though, is like, because every class can use every weapon, you're never like screwed where you're like, oh, we just fought this boss and we killed it and they dropped this stuff and these jerks ran in and grabbed everything before I could. It's fine. Like, you're always going to get a good weapon eventually. Sometimes in the drops, you don't even pick up a weapon. You'll pick up a buff. It'll be like, oh, health regeneration, 15% for the next 20 minutes or whatever. Like, the drops aren't just a new weapon or something like that. Also, there's no armor in this game, so you're not upgrading your armor at all. That's another way that the game is kind of streamlined for the Battle Royale format. So if you're a big fan of Elden Ring, or really of any From Software's games, there's this whole like meta that's involved where it's like, if you do this, then you get this item, and then that item turns into this. Like, I've never learned any of that playing any of their games. Like, that to me is like, maybe you understand a lot of that stuff. I don't. I'm like, I pick up a weapon, I use it. If I don't like it, I find another one. But if you are into that meta part of From Software's games, it's totally in here. For me, it was kind of a pleasant surprise. Fans know I'm going to pick this up and it's going to do this. I'd pick it up and be like, damn, that's awesome. Because seriously, like, you can get one drop that just kind of completely changes how you play the rest of the run. Because it's just like this overpowering weapon that maybe you have to use it a little bit differently, but once you get the hang of it, you can actually just kind of crush through the game. Probably the reason that I like this more than any other From Software game is because I felt like I was contributing. I mattered. Like, when I play From Software games, I always feel like I'm like this mealy mouse. It's just like trying to eke out survival and just live. In this, I felt like I was the hunter instead of being hunted. And again, it's because I have two other people with me who know what they're doing and are maybe good at the game, maybe not. But just, again, having them as a distraction there to just draw enemies away from me or to heal me. Like, you can get abilities and buffs where, like, if you take a flask, it heals everybody in the party. It goes crazy. Like, as you get further into your runs, like, once you get into, like, day 2, that's when you really start seeing, like, the emergent cool stuff. Like, the really awesome weapons that you can get, the special buffs that you can get. A lot of times I don't even know what they did, but I'm just like, they look cool, and I'm sure they're doing something. And I would just roll through and just do the best that I could. I think for people who wanted to like From Software's games, who like the aesthetics, the creatures, the tone, the setting, like me, who could never get far enough into the games to actually consume a lot of the content, this game is a godsend. Now, the big X factor is, will people who really like From Software's games typically like this game? I'll admit, not a single person I played with used voice chat, so I didn't get to talk to anybody to get their impressions of the game, but you could tell the people who were good. Even in this environment, you could tell the people who were From Software players and were really good at their games. It seemed to me that they took joy in helping others. The community, I only played this for, I think, 6 hours total. The community was really awesome, man. Like, they picked up, like, my first match. My two teammates knew immediately it was my first match. I don't know if they saw it or whatever. They took care of me. They're, like, dropping stuff. And, like, so they walk up to me and just drop, like, 3 weapons at my feet, and I could look at them and, like, the community for this game I thought was really awesome. And again, there was a lot of communication going on. There's emotes and stuff that you can do and little dances and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure they'll sell those in the future. And I'm sure DLC is going to have new bosses and new enemies and stuff like that. My big question, though, is if there will be other maps. Because in this beta, there was only one. And it is big, and there is just tons of different enemies and enemy types and things like that on it. But that's all there was. And it's like the starting area of Elden Ring. That's what it's based on. What's that called? That area, Live something or other?
I don't remember.
Me either. And I just played it. But anyway, it's based on that. So it uses those like textures and plants and all that kind of stuff. And it does wear out its welcome pretty quickly if you played Elden Ring and you already spent a bunch of time in those areas, which I did because I suck at their games. And I spent more time in those areas than most people do. So that's my one concern is how many maps are there going to be? Is there only going to be one? Or is it going to be like a PUBG where you release a map once every like 9 months or something like that, and they want people to just keep playing on that same map to get better at that one map?
Well,
I don't know.
I would imagine you wouldn't need to really balance these things to the same degree because you don't have players against each other.
Right.
Like, all you need to do is design something that the monsters can sort of handle and you can traverse, and there you go.
Yeah.
You aren't dealing with the X factor of, like, you know, people who are going to break things in a competitive environment.
Yeah, no, you're right. Each run takes around 30 minutes, and that's for the whole 3 days. Well, I mean, I never got to the third day, but like I got basically to the end of the second day, and it never took more than 30 minutes. So you can jump in, play one of these matches, spend 30 minutes with it, jump out if you want to. Also, in kind of the roguelike vibe, when you do die and finish and you go back, you do keep some of your buffs that you've earned. And so that becomes a collection that you have back in the little hub area. And before you go out for each run, you can go in and you can select which one of those you want to assign to your player before you go out. So much like Hades and a lot of other roguelites, it's one of those things where you are rewarded for keeping playing with new gear and new buffs that you can assign to your character for each new run. And that's where it's probably mostly like roguelite. I mean, it's definitely streamlined. There's no doubt about it. The lack of armor, the leveling up is very simplified. How do you feel about that? As someone who enjoys these games far more than I do typically.
Like, I guess it's fine. I mean, my issue with it is that it's the opposite of what I want from one of these things. Like, the idea of repeating myself that much and never having anything permanently upgrading or moving forward or changing is horrifying to me. Like, to me, the appeal of a From game is grinding, kind of throwing yourself into this mix and getting the thing that now gets you be competitive, or leveling up that one stat that gets you to where you want to be, and kind of like accumulating all this stuff and kind of becoming this like more powerful thing that still isn't powerful in this new area, but you've sort of mastered this location. Now it's time to move on to the next location, and now you feel like that mouse again. Mm-hmm. The idea of just sort of repeating myself every 30 minutes at a time to just sort of brainlessly sort of level these things, like that. That's not it though. Like, it's not brainless. Like, you feel empowered as you play, because you start as the mouse. Your sword is like worthless, and each thing feels significant. Like I said, going from level 1 to level 2, you feel it immediately. New weapons. If you get a new sword or a new staff or whatever, it's like night and day from the thing that you used before. Where before it was taking like 6 whacks to kill something, now it takes 2. Like, you really feel like you're becoming more powerful. But I don't get to keep that. It goes away at the end of the match.
It does, yeah.
Fuck you.
Really?
Like, that's it. Yeah, I don't want to play this game. I have no interest in this game at all.
Have you ever played Fortnite?
Yeah.
Have you?
I didn't.
Have you played Battle Royales?
Yeah, I played PUBG. I played Fortnite. I played Apex Legends. Apex Legends is the closest I got to actually liking one of them, because I think it plays the best.
It does, yeah.
But again, I don't. Multiplayer is repulsive to me in the sense of having to just repeat yourself. It's just the same thing over and over and over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing, basically.
Right, but like Hades gets permanent upgrades.
Yeah, I mean, you do get permanent things you can assign to your character, but not permanent weapons or anything.
But it's just, I don't want to play Elden Ring like that.
Do you think most fans are going to feel this way?
I have no idea.
I'd be interested to see.
I don't want to play Elden Ring like that. I don't want to play Elden Ring with 2 other people. I don't want to play Elden Ring by myself, but have to have 2 bots being brainlessly supporting me. I am just going to play Elden Ring again. Like, I do not want to play this game.
Interesting.
I have no interest in it.
None at all?
No.
Wow. I'm surprised to hear that. Maybe your curiosity. I thought you might want to just give it a go just to see.
Everything you're saying is completely repulsive to me.
Really?
I have no interest in this at all.
Which is probably why it appeals to me.
Yeah. And I really don't know how my opinion on that lines up with like the majority of From people. I mean, I feel like most From fans are just going to want more,
just blindly going to support them, basically.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine that most people who play these games are that specific about what they like about them as I am.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's certainly not, and I don't, I'm not like mad about it. I was like, oh, how dare they make this game when it's not what I want? It's fine. Like, go ahead. Like, makes sense to me that something like that would be made, especially by another team that was just like, hey, what if we did this? Like, just fuck around with that. Like, that makes sense to me.
To be fair, I also found myself lost in a lot of the verbiage in this because I didn't play Elden Ring as much as other people. So a lot of the things, a lot of the words and the phrases, I was like, what the hell is that? Like, but again, it's set up in such a way that the other people can help you and get you through like the rough spots. And I was fortunate actually to have people who were willing to do that and kind of get me through some of that stuff.
I just don't care. Like to me, like the appeal of these things is sort of like the curated experience and the design of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And this just sounds like chaos to me.
Yeah.
And I guess I would play it if it was free, but I don't think it is it?
No.
So no.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this too.
I'm not going to spend money on this.
Okay.
I'll tell you that much right now.
I'll say this too. I think this is my favorite Battle Royale.
I wouldn't call it a Battle Royale.
I'm not.
Though.
It is, though. If you play it, it
but
is
a Battle Royale is 100 people.
Against everybody else.
Themselves.
Yeah.
This is a co-op game that steals the Battle Royale shrinking, like, shrinking arena.
Well, it
idea.
also...
Which, honestly, I'm surprised that doesn't happen more. Like, it seems like a really cool thing to apply, not just to a battle royale, but to, like, almost any sort of
well, it also
large
borrows,
area.
Yeah, but it also borrows the building of your character. Because in Fortnite, you start, you have nothing, and you pick up your first weapon, it's a pea shooter, and then as you kill people, you pick up their stuff.
I mean, the literal name of the genre, battle royale, means a lot of people fighting.
No, you're
and there's only 3.
No, you're right. And you're not fighting each other. Yeah. Yeah.
So I wouldn't call. I mean, I think it takes elements of it. It's like, you know, I
it
guess it's
feels like a battle royale while you're playing.
I guess it's a battle royale like.
Yeah.
In the way that things are Souls likes.
I'll just say, like, I can see where listening to me talk about it, you may not. It doesn't sound, but when you play it, it does, because you're constantly checking the map to see where the ring is and how far outside of the ring you're gonna be. If it's gonna shrink, do I need to move? Like, you still look at strategy similarly as you do in a battle royale, as far as dealing with that shrinking battlefield and trying to accomplish something before it's shrunken. And that, like, sometimes you're fighting a boss, and the boss is gonna get lost outside the ring, and you're trying to finish off the boss to get the drops before the ring closes around the boss, and you have to run away. So there's definitely strategies that you typically use in battle royale that you also use in this, but you're right, to your point, you're not constantly looking out for other players, you're looking out for the enemies. So basically the enemies that they populate the map with, they replace the 100 other people you're supposed to be fighting, I guess, is the way I would look at it.
But that's a different PvE thing.
It is. It definitely is. But I really enjoyed it. Like, I didn't want to stop playing. And I'm shocked that I felt that way about this game. So it's
more proof that if you just mess with how the stamina works, you're going to be more appealing to you.
I honestly never found myself out of stamina in this. So that definitely is, like, they've nerfed that for sure. But generally, I had a great time with this game. I really had obviously our tastes are way different. And so I do generally like PvE and multiplayer games, and I don't really like Battle Royale that much, which is why I'm saying this is my favorite Battle Royale, because I usually don't like games like that. I like that this is like a sword combat-based game that's a Battle Royale instead of a shooter. Because they're all shooters pretty much, except for this one. So I had a lot of fun with it. I don't know if Elden Ring From Software fans will enjoy it as much as I did, because again, I haven't typically been a fan of their games, but it gave me just enough of what I do like about their games, while giving me plenty of what I like about other video games, that overall, it was a really fun experience.
It'll be interesting because so much of the From fandom is just about builds.
Right.
Builds this, builds that, what this build does that, does this, this build is the challenge for the... And to streamline that to the point that you have no control over what stat upgrades anything beyond what class you picked. Like, I wonder how many From fans are going to just recoil in horror from that. That doesn't really bother me so much. Like, that's, like, you know, I'm more interested in exploration, finding stuff, and adapting my build to sort of deal with whatever thing I found that I think I want to use.
Yeah.
Or just, you know, pumping magic up and just blasting people with those fucking rocks all the time. Like, it. So I don't know, but like, I really don't know. I don't know what this is going to do when it contacts the enemy.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. It does have the thing where, like, and I'm going to sound like an idiot talking about this. I don't really understand it, but it does have the thing where, like, you have the one thing, and then you attach with the other thing, and then those two things together give you this crazy boost. Like if you play with the good players, and you can obviously tell very quickly who's good and who isn't, and you watch them, like, man, in like 10 minutes, I had a new sword. In 10 minutes for them, they're like throwing like 80-foot fireballs and shit. Like, there is definitely a meta in this, where if you dig into the gear and the drops and you stack them correctly and equip them correctly, it gives you like these crazy powerful boosts. And then the other thing too that I should have mentioned is the special abilities. Like the sorceress has this awesome thing where she basically just boosts your damage. So you got to work together on it. But like the warrior has a hook shot, and you can hook enemies and then draw them in. And very quickly, I figured out that me and this sorceress, I'm like, you stick next to me, girl. I would grab the enemies, pull them in, and then before I would deliver, like because you pull them in and then you do a devastating blow, she would do her damage pump up on the enemy, and then I would do this boom, boom, just mass damage. Like, there's definitely minutia to the game where you can work together, and not all of it is the way it is in Elden Ring or Dark Souls, but some of it is. So it will be interesting to see if the fans resonate with this or not. Again, I wish people were using voice chat while we were playing, so I could get an idea of who they were and what they were thinking. But I will say this, like, people who you could tell were already good at the game are also really good at Elden Ring Nightreign.
Have they said how much it's going to be?
I think it's $40.
It's 40?
Yeah.
That's about right.
That's what it costs for, like, a multiplayer game that should be free.
Yep.
It's always $40. So anyway, I'm just going to wrap it up and just say, I'm Shane Satterfield. I'm sitting here right now telling you that I liked Elden Ring Nightreign. Can you believe it? I can't believe it.